Welcome to the Xero Practice Masters series. And in this podcast series, what we're looking at is talking to real life firms just like you, and the journey that they have come on, the lessons they have learned, the mistakes they've made, and to learn from their journey as to how it can help you and your firm. So this podcast series is sponsored by Xero. And today, I'm not only joined by a practice master in Allan Egan, I'm also joined by Marcus Rose from Xero, who works very, very closely with Irish firms in implementing Xero, and in implementing Xero in such a way that it creates opportunity for both the firm and for the team and for the clients and for the firm owners. And the way Marcus and Xero implement and work with firms, it's not just about installing another piece of technology, it's actually about changing how we work. Allan, Marcus, welcome to the Xero Practice Master series. Allan, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are today, who your firm is today, but also where you've come from and where you started off on your accountancy business journey?
Thanks very much, Des. How's it going, Marcus? So my accountancy journey, maybe I'll start there and bring it up to today. So I started as a trainee. Actually, it's 20 years ago this month, would you believe? In January 2025, came out of college. Did economics and history, or studied economics and history in college.
A natural route to becoming an accountant?
Absolutely, yeah. I could say I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I came out of secondary school, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do when I came out of college either. So as it happened in kind of December 2024, a friend of mine was her mother was working in a practice in Maynooth. I was out of college probably about a year at that stage, working in construction with my dad and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And an opportunity came up as a trainee accountant in practice in Maynooth, as I said, Warwick Fitzgerald's office. And I liked the sound of it. I went for an interview, I think on the Thursday, and I started the following Monday. So it was a quick start, but I can honestly say that I fell in love with it straight away. I know that's probably a sad thing to say about accountancy, but really, really enjoyed it right from the start. I think it's something that I still enjoy now, is the interaction with the clients. I love to see their businesses grow, and working with Porrick and Dylan in Fitzgerald's there, two great mentors to me. But you were really involved in the client's business, from the accounts to bookkeeping and finance side of things. Porrick always had a great relationship with all of his clients, and I really I really liked that, So so I was with Fitzgerald's there for about 7 years, qualified with them and stayed on as a senior for a couple of years. After that, then I went into commercial banking for 3 years with AIB and KBC. And I suppose that came about again, probably through Porrick, because Porrick was always involved in different kind of financing and things like that. And I always had an interest in kind of corporate finance. So spent 3 years in there. And in the back of my head, I was always saying to my partner, my now wife, I'd love to set up on my own and do my own thing. And you can only
first time, Allan, can you remember? Was it back when you were working with Porrick and Dillon in your first firm? Was it during that commercial banking period? When did you have that first spark of, I want to have my own firm?
I would say it was probably within a couple of months of working with Porrick, to be quite honest with you. I loved everything about it. I loved the way they did it. And in the back of my head, I was kind of like, I'd love to do something like this. And I'd say I was a bit of a sponge. I was really kind of soaking it all in in the back of my. I probably didn't think about it at the time, but I was definitely taking it in and kind of storing it away, and things that they did really well that I do, and things that I thought maybe I could do a little bit different or things like that. So it was always just in the back of my head, and yeah. there wasn't an exact moment, but I suppose maybe the exact moment that I decided to do it was when we were on our honeymoon, and my wife said to me that, enough's enough now. You've been talking about it for long enough. I want to have children sometime in the future, and you're either going to do it now or you're going to do it in 20 years' time. So it's up to you. So I was given
honeymoon conversation, Alan.
yeah. So anyways, we made the decision. Look, I'll do it now. I didn't want to wait another 20 years for it. So that was actually 10 years ago.
That your wife pushed you out of the nest.
She pushed me out of the nest. Yeah, she was just sick of me listening to me talking about things I wanted to do, and kind of pushed me to do things to actually do them.
When did you start?
For some reason, I seem to be coming up to a lot of anniversaries at the moment. That was 10 years ago this month that conversation happened when we were on our honeymoon. And then I went back to college. I did a course with the CPA, just a kind of tax, the C-tax course, a refresher course, just to kind of get myself back into the kind of the compliance tax, anything I'd kind of missed out on in the previous 3 years. And then I started up again, I finished my job at KBC in September 2025 and kind of started in October 20 or 15 rather. So coming up in 10 years this October.
So tell us this, Alan, for people who are listening or watching who are thinking about setting up. Can you focus in on that time where like you left your job and set up your firm? Like,
Yeah.
did you have a safety net of clients, or like that leap of faith to going from employed to self-employed, that entrepreneurial leap?
No, I didn't have any clients because I'd been out of practice for 3 years, and so I didn't have a book to take with me or anything like that. So really, I spent that 10-month period, as I said, doing the C-tax course, upskilling again, to try and get a bit more knowledge. There was a great satisfaction personally knowing that I was going to quit my job in 9 months, so I had a new spring in my step actually going into work for those 10 months, knowing that I wasn't going to be here in 12 months' time, if you know what I mean. When I told my manager, my boss at the time, what I was planning to do when I was handing in my notice in September, he kind of had the attitude, good luck with that, like you'll be back to us soon, kind of thing. And that gave me another little bit of motivation to kind of make sure that didn't happen. And yeah, I had support of my wife, I suppose, as well at the time. We committed to this. We'd said we'd give it, a couple of years and see how it goes. So there wasn't any pressure from her on that side of things. So look, I saved up a little bit of money, enough kind of to keep me going for maybe 12 months, but there was very little activity outside of starting up the business for those first couple of years. Like you had to sacrifice the weekends away, the birthdays, some weddings and things like that, just until you kind of got the recurring income coming up to a level where you thought, right, okay, I can start to get back to a normal life again.
So Alan sets up his business at the very, very start. Were you Borgo? I see we've got your logo. Your firm name is Borgo. Were you Borgo from day one, or were you Allan Egan and now you've morphed into and become Borgo? What was that journey?
Yeah, well, you said we've only got 45 minutes, Des, roughly. So So there's been three kind of brands, I suppose. The first one was very traditional. It was just myself. It was Egan and Co. Was the original thing. It was just myself as a sole trader, and I adopted the very traditional accounting name of your surname and Co. And that was fine, but I suppose I rebranded within a couple of years, and part of that rebrand, I suppose, was tied in with how I wanted the firm to be viewed. I didn't want it to be viewed as kind of a traditional old school accountancy firm. We were using kind of, I suppose, some of the newer technology tools, and I wanted to be able to portray that image. So after about 2 years, I incorporated the business into, and it was called Eon Accountants Limited, and we just traded as Eon Accountants. So just from a branding perspective, I felt that it would appeal more to kind of the type of clients or demographics that we were looking to attract at that time. So that was probably up until 3 years ago, and then 3 years ago we went through a merger process with a company called Calc Accounting, my partner Jared Kiernan, and we merged Eon Accountants with Calc Accounting, and we rebranded again then for under a new entity called Borgo. So,
And just to give us a feel for your firm today, like, how big is the team? We don't necessarily want financial specifics.
yeah.
Of the operation.
Yeah, so we have 15 in total there now. So that's a mixture between client managers, what we call kind of production managers, accountants, bookkeepers, and a person in payroll then as well.
Excellent. So, Marcus, just switching over to you. Can you first of all just tell us what you do with Xero and what your role is and how you work with accountants like Allan?
Yeah, absolutely. So my role is senior account manager. So I look after and manage the relationship essentially between with our accounting partners across Ireland and Ireland only. So, and kind of my role essentially is facilitator and client relationships, right? So I'm not an accountant. I'm not really good at maths in general, if I'm honest, or numbers at all. So my role in all of this is to facilitate in terms of putting together the pieces of the puzzle with the likes of Sheikh, our partner consultant, who is the accountant. So getting him in the door to show the product, to demo the product, to lay down the foundations of accounting practice in terms of our product and the value that it kind of brings to the practice. And my side of things is to facilitate that, and then to deal with the commercials and to look after everybody and manage the relationship.
I'll be honest with you, Marcus. It's only as I've come to work with you guys on the Xero Roadshow in 2024 and working with you now again in 2025. I wasn't aware that you were so hands-on. Like I like you guys. You go into firms, you sit with firms, you work with firms, and that's pretty unique as a software company in the accounting sphere. I think you're the most hands-on, one of the most hands-on companies I've come across. And I don't think that many firms in Ireland are aware of how hands-on you actually are and the service that you provide to people who are implementing and getting up and running with Xero.
Yeah, not really. No, I think look, there's only 5 or 3 of us on the team really, so we can't be in every place at once. But certainly over 2024, we've been even more hands-on than we ever have. And from our point of view, being around and being in amongst the partner the firms and everybody in the partner community is a massive thing for us. It's what makes us successful. Without it, we're kind of nobody. So spending the time and spending the hours and the hours on the support and being in the practice is something that we really, really want to do and really passionate, because it's our added value. We're spending the time to change the way the practice works and to change the way that they think about the industry and think about how they can service their clients and what they can do in terms of their practice. That's what we want to do. That's our value add, really.
Marcus, just when Allan shared his journey, he talked about the wife on the honeymoon telling him, right, either go do it now or you're not going to do it for 20 years. And then he talked about being Egan and Co, just Allan to Ion to Borgo. What's your insight? Like, you must have a fascinating insight working so closely with firms who have gone through that transition from taking the leap of faith, the entrepreneurial leap, to then progressing and growing. What's your insights as a self-confessed non-accountant who isn't actually that good with numbers? What's your insights into people who may be either A, considering taking the leap, or B, people who are going through the growth and expansion journey?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, firstly, I don't think my honeymoon was as interesting conversation-wise as Allan, to be honest. I mean, but in terms of my experience and kind of taking that leap, it really came to kind of light for me during 2020 and kind of COVID. I'd kind of moved into Xero in 2018 and then this kind of role in 2019. So I was still kind of finding my feet. And then we moved into COVID, right? So everything accelerated in terms of technology. Everything went a bit wild. It was a bit of the wild west for a while there. But it really came to light for me that every partner firm or every accounting firm that I ever spoke to, they were so busy and so willing to give all of their clients their time to manage the wage subsidies or the regulations that were coming in. There were so many of the businesses that we were speaking to so many of the practices that we were speaking to that were forgetting that they were businesses. That was a kind of a light bulb moment for me, really, in terms of, okay, but you're servicing your clients and you're doing a wonderful job, but also you're forgetting that you're a business. So the day-to-day stuff isn't running because it can't run because it needs so much human input. That was a kind of, like I said, a light bulb moment for me in terms of bringing to life what we're trying to do and what we're trying to help the practices change. Is that if, for God forbid, that ever happens again, the practices that are automated and using technology are going to be so much better off for that, meaning they're still going to be able to service their clients in whichever way they need and in the right way, but nothing in terms of day-to-day is going to be able to stop and slow down. And everybody's going to be able to continue to make profit and continue to grow if they want to, or just have a better life work balance is kind of key to it as well. That's what I've kind of taken out of it over the last few years.
Yeah, it is fascinating, and it's you saying that. I see this all the time. I started the accountancy profession in 1996. OmniPro, I think we're 21 years old this year. But where OmniPro came from was when I was a practice reviewer. And exactly as you described, I was going into these firms and, we were reviewing them from a technical and regulation and compliance perspective. But I was meeting all these people across the country who they're so focused on serving their clients that they often were shortchanging themselves. And that's still the case in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Allan, for yourself, you had a great mentor, which obviously really helps. Padraig was one of my, Padraig and Dylan were one of my early clients, and
Yep.
It's a truly phenomenal firm, and he was a phenomenal man. So you had a great mentor to get you going. But at what point, because I know now, you're technology focused, you're technology enabled. I know from talking to you and working with you, Allan Egan is building a business here. It's an accounting business, not an accounting practice. When or where did the tipping point come from you around technology? Because my true belief, Allan, is when I look at a firm like yours, and then I look at a firm that's not technologically enabled, the competitive advantage that you have, it's almost unfair. Now, of course, it's not unfair because you've taken the steps, you've invested in the technology, invested in yourself, you've done the work. But, when did you get a sense of, okay, right, I'm an accounting firm, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in this from a business perspective? And then also, when did you reach the tipping point of, okay, there's something in this technology here that can give me a huge competitive advantage?
Yeah, well, I suppose just on the practice versus the business thing, that is something that we do struggle with as well. It's not a case that we don't have some of those issues still within the business. Like, as I said, I love to serve the customer, sometimes to my own detriment, and staff would be given out. But in terms of the technology piece, I suppose, like, right from the start, I had the time because we didn't have any clients. So I had the time to I was reading up on the industry. I was going to events. I was not sure if podcasts were quite out at the time, but if they were, I was probably listening to them. So I was just trying to get as much knowledge of the industry as possible. And when I started the business, I did. I was using a desktop product for bookkeeping, but very quickly I read a book, and I think I mentioned this before, but The World's Most Inspiring Accountants, and it's a brilliant name for a book. But nearly every story in that book, they're all short stories about accountants around the world, and nearly every single story referenced Xero. And I hadn't heard of it before, but it kept coming up in these short stories. So I started to look into it. And again, another conversation with a colleague, and they said they'd been hearing about it. So I would say within kind of 12 months of actually setting up, I was starting to kind of use Xero. And then once I'd started to use it, I shelved the desktop application straight away, and we moved straight in with Xero and Dext as well as a kind of complementary kind of add-on as well. So we've probably been using both of them now for 8 years, and we just adopted it. It was probably easier for us as a startup business. We didn't have a huge amount of legacy clients that we had to try and migrate onto new systems. We had some clients, and anybody who didn't use it, we kind of moved them on pretty quickly. And then anybody new that came in, they just went straight on to Xero. And we adopted the attitude that, particularly for kind of bookkeeping, if you wanted bookkeeping services, you had to go on to Xero. There was no alternative. If you're using something else, you could probably find a different accountant. But if you want us to do it, it would be straight on to Xero. And we were lucky in that we were small, I suppose. We could do that, and we've just continued with that practice ever since.
But just to be clear, and just so there's no confusion on this, Allan, if I come to you as a client, it's Xero, or actually maybe you should consider another account. So you only work with people if they're prepared to work on Xero.
For bookkeeping clients. So if we're doing the bookkeeping, it's only on Xero. We won't look at anything else. Some of our, say, compliance only clients that come to us once a year, if they're doing their own bookkeeping, they might be using an alternative software. And we will look at them from just a compliance year-end perspective, but we won't look at like bookkeeping or anything like that for those clients. And
there's very different schools of thought on that, Allan. Like some people say, well, you need to be able to work Xero, QuickBooks, Surf, Big Red Book. You need to be able to serve the client base. And some firms would feel that by taking the approach that you've taken, that you're excluding an opportunity to grow and an opportunity to work with clients. Like, what do you say to those people? What's the advantage of being, we are Xero? If you're bookkeeping with us, we're using Xero, versus being software agnostic?
Yeah, I suppose, look, for me, I adopted that attitude right from the start, and I kind of had a refresher about that as part of the recent merger, because the practice that we merged in with, they were using different softwares for different bookkeeping clients. And I suppose, look, having come out of that merger process and things settling down, say 18 months later, I can look back and say that, definitely some of the issues that we had around that were having different softwares for different clients, and, trying to be an expert in all of them. For us anyway, it just didn't really make sense. The technology is changing. Xero are updating all the time, so it's hard to keep a pace with one technology, never mind trying to be an expert in all of them. So for us, I think as part coming out of that merger process, we reflected on what was going on in the other practice, and it's kind of made us kind of probably double down on having just one software within the business.
Yeah, because you said a couple of minutes ago, well, it was easier for me because I read the book, The World's Most Inspiring Accountants. I started off with Xero and I built it on Xero. But in the merger process then, because some people that listen to that say, sure, it's easier for Allan. Sure, it's I've got an existing client base. How do I migrate them onto Xero? Can you talk us through, Allan, that merger piece and taking these clients who are software agnostic and moving them onto Xero? Like, how did you do that? Like, how did you get all these people who were doing their work in a certain way on a certain platform to change? Because a lot of firms tell me that this is the biggest problem. Well, sure, Xero is great, but how do I transition everybody over?
Yeah, I'd love to say we had a plan for it. We didn't. In hindsight, we probably I would have done it differently, I suppose. But at the time, I went in with the attitude that this was the right thing to do. And I said to the staff, we just need to migrate these clients over as soon as possible. And you know, with looking back, I probably would have taken a more strategic approach to it and over a longer term. But it was just a case of talking to the clients and just kind of saying to them, look, this is the way we're moving. And again, it was just a case of that, like the benefits that is going to be there for your business. But I suppose ultimately we won't be able to work together if we can't, if you're not able to adopt the kind of the technology that we'll be kind of using in the future. And like, it was a lot of conversations. It wasn't just as blunt as that maybe, but like over a period of time. And I suppose the clients then, maybe if you're explaining that to them and you have a history of using the product, they'll maybe trust you a little bit, that it is the right thing for their business. But some of the clients, they didn't like that. They prefer to keep going the way they're going, and we probably lost a couple of clients along the way as a result of that.
Percentage-wise, this draconian move, right, to serve you better and give you better service and support you in your business, we need you to move to Xero, right? So draconian, right?
Yeah.
So this draconian move, percentage-wise, how many clients did you actually lose in that transition of the merging?
I would say probably between 10 and 15%, maybe we would have lost just over an 18-month period. Now, that wasn't just down to the adoption of Xero. That was kind of the changes that were going on as part of as the merger, like obviously changing your accountant, to change in who your client manager was, and just different things. There was a lot of things going on. That wouldn't be just down to the adoption of the technology, but yeah. And look, thankfully, as I said, touch wood, we've come out the other side of it there now. But for us now, our bookkeeping practices are just back to where they were kind of 3 years ago. Everybody's on Xero. It makes bookkeeping easier. It makes VAT easier. It makes compliance easier, and it makes year end easier for us. Just having everybody on the one product.
The one thing I like about you being Xero only is envisaging what that does for your team, what that makes possible, because basically you've got a playbook. This is how we do it here. So it's for the clients, well, we can serve you better, but for the team, it just must make their life exponentially easier. Marcus, this is a real challenge, okay? So transitioning existing clients to Xero and becoming a single software firm, it is a real challenge. But obviously, you've seen people who fail miserably at this, people who are successful at this.
Yeah.
The people who fail miserably at the implementation, rollout, and transition, what do they do wrong, and what do the people who succeed do right?
It's an interesting point. Obviously, what Allan was saying there in regards to migration and being in the position to go straight on to Xero and pick one software. Luckily for us, it was kind of Xero. The reason that we go and are so hands-on with all the firms is exactly that reason, is because they don't know where to start. They don't know what to do, how to do it. So we're with them all the time in regards to planning and forward planning and managing how we need to manage it. But in terms of kind of, I guess, the wrong way, we were working with a firm over in Cyprus kind of a number of years ago now. And they first came to us and they said, right, we want to get our most complicated client onto Xero. This one takes all of our time. We know that Xero can do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to speed every kind of process up, and this, that, and the other. And we sort of said, you need to just relax a second, because if you jump into that feet first, it's going to go wrong. And they said, no, we're going to do it. This is what we're going to do. And about 3 or 4 weeks into them starting that project, they came back to us and said, yeah, it's kind of failed. It's kind of gone completely wrong, because I think the biggest mistake, or the biggest thing that we would normally see, is that people think and hear that Xero can make great efficiencies within the practice and change the way that the practice kind of works, which is 100% true, but they jump into it the wrong end. They jump into that complicated client, the external client, where they've got to go and try and sell Xero or move people onto Xero and handle the objections of the clients, whereas they should be doing it the other way around.
But where should they start then?
So they should be starting within the practice themselves. So it's the small little jobs that they've got full control over that don't need any kind of outside influence. It's the jobs that take up the most time, but they're the smaller kind of jobs, because the practice has the influence over them that they sort of say, well, actually, they're going to give us their stuff in this particular way. We need to get this into Xero. We can process this in Xero, and we can get the accounts out of the way. Once you've kind of gone through that process, and it's not like a massive gain. It could be 1 or 2% in terms of time or efficiency, but you're seeing that, and it allows you to be in the product and use the product like Allan and his team use one particular product for a certain period of time and become comfortable and confident with it, and know how it works, and understand the benefit to you as a practice and you as the accountant, to be able to then go and say, actually, this is going to work well for this client or for that client, because then you can then go and have that conversation with even more confidence. Whereas if you're doing it the other way around and you're just going to have a conversation with the clients, you don't know how Xero works and how it's benefiting you. So you then can't relay that information on how that's going to benefit the client.
So start small, start simple, start easy,
Yep.
and then scale. Don't start at the big end, start at the small end.
Yep.
One of the concerns, because accounting and bookkeeping firms are so busy, and accountants and bookkeepers are so busy all the time, and there's all these client demands and deadlines. I think one of the things, Marcus, that holds people back is the time investment.
Yep.
Of implementation. The other thing that I think holds people back is that, I'm talking to a partner maybe in a 5-person firm or a 10-person firm, even firms like Allan's, 15, 20 people. And I'm talking to the partner who says, okay, so technology is the way forward. We've decided we're going with Xero. But the difficulty for them is that a lot of the implementation they feel is going to fall back on them. Does the implementation have to be a partner? Like, where have you seen that? Like, what's the time investment to make a transition and to roll it out? And can you think of any scenarios or firms you've come across who've done this really well without it falling on the shoulders of the partner or the principal?
Yeah, I can. I guess in regards to that side of things, the partner is always going to have, or the managing director of that particular firm is going to have a vision and a goal for the practice, how they take that forward. But essentially their vision and goal doesn't necessarily marry up with the kind of staff. So the reason we're hands-on and the reason we do lots of workshops is to bridge that gap, essentially, is to say, right, Allan and his team, Allan as a business owner wants to take this direction, the practice in this direction, but the staff are kind of like, well, why are we kind of doing that? Where that means then we can then come in and kind of understand what each individual staff member and each individual part of that team is doing, with a view to then say, well, actually, there's a better way to do this, and this is how it kind of is, and then help them plan for the future in regards to digital practice, get them trained up, get them understanding the product to a really high level, as well as managing the migration piece and planning out for that. There's no specific timeline. It might be a case, it might be 18 months, it might be 6 months, it might be 2 years. But having that plan in place and sticking to it and being consistent is kind of the key driver to it. Obviously the big firm that I can, or the firm that I can kind of bring to the table is kind of our friend Aoife Kelly, right? Again, in COVID, she came to me in 2022 and said, we're completely desktop, completely paper-based. I want to automate as much as I possibly can. I want to spend less time in the practice and spend more time with my family. So the complete shift from a desktop paper-based practice to where that practice is now is a massive success story for one side of things. And then we've got multiple other firms in terms of the likes of Allan's firm and a few firms down in County Kerry. They've kind of gone about it in two slightly different ways in regards to we managed to work out the processes and the planning in regards to migrations and kind of a certain specific process that they do in the practice, and they've benefited that, and now they're able to spend a bit more time investing in the practice. We've got another firm that's invested fully into the practice suite of tools, and now we're kind of looking at the processes and the day-to-day kind of stuff. So there's no right or wrong answer to it. It's kind of what everybody's comfortable with and how long they want to do it. But the reason we're so hands-on is because the migration process is a tough process. It's hard. And if we can either take care of some of the heavy lifting or help them plan it and get more staff involved to want to help to do it, to drive that transition from traditional to digital, then the more hands we can have on that, the easier it becomes, and the more it takes off, and the quicker it becomes to get to the place they want to be.
You mentioned IFA there in the transition from a paper-based to a fully automated firm, and I suppose I've watched that transition working with IFA. Like it probably took 1.5 to 2 years, but it was actually not really stressful, and it was incremental steps, incremental progress, but the exponential impact in terms of IFA's growth, her margins, and where she is now, it's huge. And the other thing that's interesting, so it's not only you guys in Xero who help firms implement Xero. You have consultants, you've got the likes of Dan Cheel and FGS, you've got Marilli from Nifty, who help firms implement. I'm a firm believer, you know, if I don't know, if a press breaks at home, okay, my unique ability is not in carpentry. My unique ability is actually in doing what I do in OmniPro. So when a press breaks at home, I just say, let's call the carpenter. Let's call the expert to implement, because it's just better use of everybody's time and you get a better result. And it's almost the same with Xero. And you guys don't just stop at ye helping. My understanding is that you will provide financial support to take on a consultant if people are committed to going down the Xero route. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. So you mentioned Nifty and FGS and stuff there, right? So they manage our app implementations in regards to maybe XPM or Xero Practice Manager or whatever it might be. But there's an opportunity for us to help them with that. So some firms might not know where to start. They might not have the budget for it. But it's a case of if we're talking about a commitment to move to Xero or move client base to Xero, whatever it might be, we can commit to you as a practice. Like we're with you in terms of a practice to do that, so we can help fund that implementation moving forward, and then we can help fund, for example, the marketing side of things. I know we've done some videos and bits and bobs with Allan, and taking some nice photos of Allan in Alma in the coffee shop in Dublin there. So there's that element of things as well. So when we're helping you grow your business, I guess the best way I can probably describe it is that at the moment, most practices are, if you take the Six Nations as an example, there's going to be 1 million scrums that happen. There's loads of chaos in that particular scrum, right? But there's always one number 8 that's got his head out the back of it, that's looking around and what's going on. That's where you want to be in terms of a business owner, rather than in the mix of it, in terms of the scrum and the chaos. What can you kind of take out of the top? So we're trying to help firms get to that point so they can keep their head up and look at the business and look at the future, with a view to saying, actually, if this is what you need to do that and to grow, we can help you with that. We're committing to you and you're committing to us, and we can help each other as a partnership.
I like that. And there's lots of rugby coming up. It's a rugby time. I like that number 8 analogy. Yes. It's the person with their head up at the back of the scrum, and that's directing the chaos. There's still going to be chaos.
100%.
Your head up and minimizing that. Allan, just looking back on success stories and lessons learned, can you share any stories of things that have happened for you and your firm, or things that have happened for your client, that because you've gone this route and the impact that this has had for you or clients or team?
Yeah, I don't know if I can think of a specific off the top of my head. I'll try, but just while Marcus was talking, we were kind of talking about the benefits for the practice owner in adapting Xero, but in the back of my head, I was also thinking that like it wouldn't work unless it actually benefits the customer as well, because that's ultimately you have to be able to kind of to sell it to them and the benefits, and they have to be able to see the benefits. So, for me, there's not one client that I can think of that we have migrated to Xero and that they've come back and said, actually, no, it doesn't work for our business, So, for me, that's the big thing. And then just also something that we do with clients coming up to kind of preliminary corporation tax time, we're able to log into their Xero system and have a conversation with the client in advance of the year end and how the business is performing kind of year to date, and have a chat around their preliminary tax. And clients often say to us, newer clients, that like that's something that their old accountant never would have done, and the benefit to us is that like we have up-to-date information on Xero, and the benefit for the client is that they're having a conversation with their accountant that's not just, oh, this is what happened 12 months ago. It's actually what's happening at the moment. And it's just a different conversation. And sometimes when people talk about advisory, as accountants, we might get lost in it a little bit. But for me, that is an advisory service, just having a conversation with your client that's not based on what happened 12 months ago. It's based on what's happening today. And you can kind of just, make a different provision for prelim other than what revenue is telling you, So for me, that's just two things: the customer service side of things, and then maybe the conversations you can have with clients are a little bit different.
In terms of mistakes that you've made that you could save other people from, or advice that you would give, like what are the pitfalls to avoid based on your experience, and not just in terms of Xero in your firm, but your firm? So what have you seen? Okay, well, if I had my time back, I would not do that, and that. But here's the opportunity: do this, this, and this.
I think, look, I suppose coming out of that merger process, maybe communication is the one thing that I would have changed as part of that process. So, if you are introducing changes within the business that are going to affect your customers, that it's communicated it probably effectively to them, and that you have probably open channels of communication with your clients. So whether that's adopting Xero or it's some kind of change in relation to payroll or your practice management software, whatever it is, just it's communicated to the clients in advance, because we're creatures of habit. Nobody likes change, so like just to give people as much notice as possible of changes that are coming up. That's probably something that, as I said, coming out of that merger process, that I'd be more focused on communicating things to the clients in advance and giving them enough kind of forewarning and stuff.
Again, a similar question to you, Marcus. What advice would you give to firms that in what you've experienced? Where are the pitfalls that they can avoid? Like, the most expensive way to learn is by trial and error, because it wastes time, money, energy. What are the shortcuts that you've seen, the things that people do really, really well, or the mistakes that people make?
Kind of going back to my earlier point, it's just thinking that Xero is going to solve all the problems immediately, and just looking inwardly at yourself rather than trying to be everything for everybody at that particular moment in time. Is just remember that essentially what you need to do is, as a firm and as a staff member, how do you change that first to then start changing the habits on the outside? That's the kind of biggest pitfall that people or firms would fall into, is that thinking it's going to change everything immediately. And then in terms of the right thing to do, again, it's kind of look at the chaos and take a moment to sit back and kind of make that decision and look at it and actually say, okay, something needs to change here. and get off of the hamster wheel. Essentially, that's the biggest thing, really.
Looking ahead, Marcus, like 2025 and beyond, where do you see the biggest opportunities are for Irish firms, and where can you see the biggest challenges being for Irish firms?
Probably this is probably the answer to both is the technology piece, right? So the firms that have adopted technology and are kind of moving into that particular area, that's opening up more of the country, more of Europe, more of the world in terms of competitive advantage to picking up clients. But then there's also an opportunity, or there's also a challenge that sometimes there's too much, and that's what kind of some firms struggle with. That there's too much choice.
What do you mean there's too much?
There might be too much choice in terms of technology, right? There might be 15 different applications for one thing, and it's a case of you go a bit app blind, right? In terms of you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on and what does what and how it connects to this and the advantages of it. That's probably something that we're trying to manage and to juggle, is to put together an optimum stack of stuff that we can help the practices with, because I think sometimes there could be too much choice and everyone gets a bit confused. But then that might go back down to the point in terms of each firm having their head down and having their head in the sand and not being able to look and make an informed choice, because they're not investing in the right areas of the business to be able to give them the time to do that. So there's probably a bit too much choice at the same time.
And so too much choice, I agree with you, because I see people and they've got they're compulsive purchasers, so they buy stuff and don't implement it.
Yeah.
And they've got all these apps and subscriptions sitting around the office, and I'm looking at bottom line, I'm saying, hold on here, you've got all these apps, you're only using them to a small percentage. So I'm all for a simplified tech stack and then build it out as appropriate. But how do we overcome this choice piece? Because it's just, everybody is selling the silver bullet solution app. And how do we, not just lifting your head up as number 8 at the back of the scrum, how do we minimize that noise and simplify the choice?
I don't, for starters, I don't think there is such a thing as a silver bullet app. I don't think every app can kind of do everything. And certainly from our point of view, like with Xero building a business platform, we've got the ecosystem to plug that in to get as close to a silver bullet app as you possibly can. I guess there's going to be a lot of choice, but have as many conversations as you can. Alan obviously did a lot of reading up and stuff and listening to podcasts and everything else, but have a conversation. People like Alan and some of the guys on your ProfitPro have been through this process. They made a choice. They've somehow managed to get to a choice, right? So they've also had the conversations with multiple different people about multiple different things. So gather as much information as you can, and then make a choice. So just understand where you want to get to, and what's going to get you there, whether it be us or a competitor or whatever it might be. But essentially, get all the information and make the choice. If it fails, it fails. There's another opportunity to do it again, but just gather as much information, speak to people that have been there and done it.
Technology is the opportunity and technology is the challenge. Technology is the opportunity. You mentioned global for clients, national for clients. It's not just national for clients or global for clients. It's actually national for team and global for team.
Yeah.
Technology is an enabler that frees us from geographic location. And I know return to office is controversial at the moment. And look, I much prefer when people are in the office. It's easier for me, but I also accept that I need to find a different way of working because the team of 2025 and the team of the future want different things. But Alan, that technology as an enabler, like, I said this already in this session, when I look at you and what you can do and how you can do it versus a firm who hasn't gone on that technology journey, like the competitive advantage that you have is it's huge. How do you overcome that choice and the potential overwhelm of technology? Because it's not just the app environments. Now it's like, it's AI and what you should be doing with AI and how we should be. So how do you overcome that challenge and what do you do with that?
Yeah, it's funny because like I was having just the same kind of thoughts myself towards the end of last year, and that I just wanted to be more focused on the tools that we're actually using over the next couple of years because I was guilty of signing up for different apps, and you'd have the subscription going out, and you're looking at it going 6 months later, going, we haven't adapted that. It hasn't. We're not using it in the business. It has to go, and you spent whatever €1,500 on 6 months of subscriptions with something. So we have just tried to narrow down what we're actually going to be working on in the next couple of years. And the truth is that that's all we need. We don't need any more than that. So that's a conversation I had to have with myself towards the end of last year, just to narrow down that focus. And then because there's so much change even within those apps, we've said that we're actually going to have to upskill again ourselves within them and just get better use out of them, because there's new features that come out within those apps without having to go off and look at other things as well. So that's kind of one of our internal kind of goals over the next 12, 24 months.
Looking ahead, Alan, where do you see the biggest opportunity is for Irish firms, and where do you see the biggest challenges are going to be for Irish firms 2025 and beyond?
The opportunities, I think, are probably the same as they've always been. There's a huge amount of business actually out there for accountants, and there's a huge amount of, I suppose, entrepreneurial spirit in Ireland. So like there's a huge amount of new businesses starting up, and if you're in the space where you can offer the services or market your services in a way that allows people to get up-to-date information, feel like they're in control, and feel like they have a bit more information about their business, and I think there's huge opportunities for accountants. And again, it doesn't have to be fancy advisory stuff. It can just be a basic level of service in terms of good bookkeeping, compliance on time, having a chat with your client, and that's probably a really good level of service for most clients. So there's the opportunities. I think just having a simple tech stack that you can provide a good level of service to your clients. And the threats, then I suppose, look, I'm not sure what the threats are. They could be global in terms of the economy and things like that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I tried to focus on the positives and keep just. I was going to say put the head down and keep going forward, but maybe get the head up and go forward, using Marx's analogy.
But that is, I suppose, that is who you are. You've shared with us that you've had this entrepreneurial flair from the very start, and entrepreneurs tend to focus on the opportunities rather than the threats. I suppose the challenge of that is, and I consider myself entrepreneurial, and sometimes when we keep focusing on the opportunities, we're missing out. We're missing out on the risk piece. But again, the belief of the entrepreneur is, well, even if I make a wrong turn, you can always get back on track. So as long as you're moving forward. Final thoughts, Alan. If there was just one insight from today, listening to yourself and listening to Marcus, what do you think is the thing that we've talked about in this podcast that is most important?
I think just actually getting started, having like a word that people use in Xero and different is having a champion within the business. For me, that champion probably should be a partner or somebody very senior in the business, because they're the ones that are driving the business, and they're the ones that the staff need to look up to and see that, well, he's talking about adapting this, and he's leading by example. So to have somebody very senior in the business that is leading that change, and just to take something, whether it's Xero or whether it's Text or something like that, but just to start to make that change. And it doesn't have to be it's not a short-term project, it's a long-term project. So to take a longer-term view on it and where you want to be in 12, 24, 36 months, as opposed to where you want to be next week or next month, and somebody said that to me recently, and it kind of stuck with me.
Excellent. Your one insight from today, Marcus?
My one insight, kind of Alan mentioned it there, right, is that the type of service that him and his team are able to give his clients now, it shouldn't be overcomplicated. It's simple. Like the technology is an enabler for Alan and his team, and it's a simple level of service that he's given, but there's also a human element to it. The tech piece is the enabler, but Alan's able to spend time with his clients to give them the right information. That's the big thing for me, and that's my one takeaway from it.
And it's interesting that those words that you've just used, the technology is an enabler to be a more human firm. Technology is not going to replace humans. And I keep saying this, and it's overused because there's more than me saying it, but technology is not going to replace accountants. But the accountants who embrace technology are going to replace those that don't. The future, it's the future for the non-technological enabled firms is diminishing every day. Marcus, where's the best place to find you, to meet you, to hook in with you and Xero?
Best place would kind of be in and around some town in Ireland or some city in Ireland at the moment, because I seem to spend more time there over with you guys than with my own family, which I think they're kind of grateful of, to be honest. But just generally, if you need it, then we can share my kind of email address and stuff, and we can have a conversation. There'll be plenty of partner events. There'll be awards dinners. There'll be road shows. There'll be all sorts going on this year that we're kind of planning from April onwards. So anywhere possible that you can, and I'm more than happy to drop by and have a conversation with you in the office.
Excellent, because the one thing that Adam, your colleague, said to me when we first spoke early last year, it was, look, Xero are committed to Ireland. Actually, it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. Xero are committed to Ireland. We're here, and we're here to stay. We're on the ground, and we want to support Irish accountants, Irish bookkeepers. Alan, best place to find you and to connect with you?
Yeah, anybody can connect with me on LinkedIn, Des. I'm happy to have a conversation with other accountants. There's certain services that we don't provide, so I'm always happy to talk to accountants about how they do things, and is there any opportunities for collaboration there as well? So LinkedIn, or just details are on our website as well, borgo.ie.
Look up borgo.ie.
Yeah.
Then, Gus, thank you very much for joining us on the Xero Practice Masters series. And of course, thank you for joining us on this podcast series. It's not just Alan is here. We have 6 of these episodes that we've created at the moment. So make sure and check out to see what the other practice masters have that can help you, your firm, on your journey. And of course, check out Xero and how they can help you on your firm and your journey. Thanks for now. We'll see you soon again.